Throughout this entire season, there really hasn't been any team in the NBA that's solidified themselves as being clearly a level above everybody else in the league, quite like the Phoenix Suns have. Ever since the beginning of the season, they've put the rest of the league on notice after their finals appearance last season, going as far as rattling off 18 straight wins over the first month of the 2022 season. But after the news that Chris Paul was going to be sidelined after the All-Star break, likely for the remainder of the regular season, there was this expectation that we were going to see some drop-off from the Suns in production, potentially making that number 1 seed more attainable for teams like the Memphis Grizzlies and Golden State Warriors. But they've managed to maintain the overall best record in the entire NBA by a pretty significant margin, and in this video, I'm going to tell you how they've been able to remain the best team in the league without Chris Paul. Real quick, only 5% of the people who watch my videos are subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy this video and you love the NBA, why not hit that subscribe button? It's free and it helps me out a ton. All of that being said, let's get right into it. You'd think that losing Chris Paul would have had more of an impact on a team that's had a top 3 offense and a top 3 defense all season. But since the All-Star break, they've still managed to maintain the 6th best offense, 3rd best defense, and 3rd best net rating in the entire league. We got to see that defense on display against Miami earlier in March in a game where the Suns would hold the Heat to only 90 points. The Suns suffocated the paint during this game. Like on this play, when Robinson drives, there are already 3 players waiting in the paint to trap him, and they immediately swarm him. When Robinson kicks it out to Vincent, Aaron Holiday is already there to put up a great contest on the shot, and it leads to a miss. Then on this play, the Heat are going to try and get Hero open with a flare screen, but Devin Booker makes the perfect rotation, and by the time the ball gets to Hero, Booker is already on him and able to contest the shot. The Suns held the Heat to only 0.85 points per possession in a half-court offense. This is a trend that's been exhibited all season, with the Suns having the 2nd best half-court defense in the entire NBA. What makes this so scary for the rest of the league is when the game slows down in the postseason and teams are forced to operate in a half-court setting, the teams that are the best at stopping half-court offenses are going to be the ones that succeed. They've got a lot of defense that they're able to throw at you, and while the obvious defensive menace that you have to talk about when talking about the Suns is Mikal Bridges, I do want to shout out DeAndre Ayton. He's been a great interior presence this year, and although he's not putting up big block numbers, he does a good job of anchoring their defense inside the paint. And one thing that has impressed me throughout the year is that he's actually been somewhat switchable when it comes to having to guard perimeter threats and ball handlers on occasion. He doesn't really do it a lot, but he can operate in a mismatch effectively enough that the other defenders on the court can help if he gets beat. On this play, he gets switched onto 𝙖𝙗𝙤𝙪, and he does a really good job of just staying in front of him and cutting off potential driving lanes. He's pulled out all the way to the 3-point line, and he keeps his feet moving and stays ready to guard the drive. And even when 𝙖𝙗𝙪 steps back for a 3, Ayton is even able to get the block on him. He frequently starts out defensive possessions pulled out to the high post, and he does a great job of providing help defense when guys get beat off the dribble, and he's the next in line to provide defense. It's not just his defense this year, though, that's been great. He's been one of their best scorers, putting up 17 points per game. I want to point out that he's shooting 79% at the rim this season, one of the best rates in the entire NBA. That's ridiculous for a guy to be shooting almost 80% at the rim. He's also got a really nice push shot that's been money this season from just outside the restricted area, and he's occasionally flashed some mid-range post-scoring ability that I'm really interested to see if we see more of in the playoffs. But what really excites me is when you consider him and Mikal as a defensive duo. They do such a great job of keeping the Suns' defense afloat and operating at maximum capacity. We need to talk about how incredible of a defender Mikal Bridges has been. He is ridiculously good, and he probably deserves a lot more respect in the Defensive Player of the Year discussion than he's gotten. His positioning on defense is just fantastic. The way he's able to defend all sorts of different situations is really, really impressive. Watch how he defends this transition play. Io is attacking the basket, and Bridges is going to get wide and keep Io in front of him, not allowing a clear lane to the rim. He forces Io out of the paint, and it allows him to get a great contest on a play where he was already at a relative disadvantage. On this play, he's literally operating as a paint presence, protecting the potential drive. He eliminates the option of LaVine getting into the paint, and then when LaVine slings it to the corner, Bridges is already sprinting to the corner to meet him, and he gets a great contest up on the shot. He fills whatever role the defense requires him to fill. According to Basketball Index, he spends 99.4% of his time guarding the most difficult matchup on the opposing team. There's a reason that he's such a well-respected defender around the league. It's because more often than not, he's guarding the best players that every team has to throw at him. Now, a more underrated key to the Suns' recent success that I haven't been seeing get nearly the recognition that it deserves is Cameron Johnson. Cameron Johnson is a fantastic basketball player, and his improvements this season cannot be emphasized enough. He had that awesome game winner against the Knicks earlier in the season that made waves around the NBA media, but really he's been doing this all year, and his improvements this season cannot be emphasized enough. He's been the third most efficient three-point shooter in the entire NBA among any player attempting 5 or more threes per game. He's also one of their most important defenders, being 6'8" and capable enough of switching onto the perimeter and also providing some level of rim deterrence. He is an elite three-point threat, and he's one of the main reasons why they're currently the 5th best three-point shooting team in the entire NBA right now. Now, I want to talk about what Devin Booker has been doing in the absence of Chris Paul, but there's a couple more players that I have to give credit to first. Cameron Payne has been fantastic operating as the starting point guard while Chris Paul has been out with an injury, putting up 14.2 points and 9.5 assists without him over the last 10 games. He's stepped up big time and played a huge role in keeping them competitive. And then also I have to shout out JaVale McGee. He's having one of the best backup center seasons that I've seen in a really long time. And he's actually leading the team in blocks per game. He's been a really impactful defender, and he's filling his role on the offensive end of the floor. He's also logging 10.3 rebounds per 75 possessions, and he's playing a huge role in their ability to secure rebounds. But of course, this continued success would not be possible without what Devin Booker has been doing for them. Not only is he putting up 28.2 points per game on a stupidly high 63.8 true shooting without Chris Paul, he's also averaging 7 assists, operating much more as a playmaker over the stretch of games rather than just a scorer. He's been great at operating in the pick and roll, finding open shooters, and even playmaking in transition. He's taken on the role of a point guard instead of only having to focus on scoring. People forget that he played point guard for his first handful of seasons in the league, and we're really getting to see some of that skill on full display since Chris Paul's been out. Him and 𝙖𝙗𝙤𝙪 have shown a really fun two-man game, with Booker feeding him easy lobs and allowing him to post up when he has a mismatch. This play right here is just perfectly executed by Booker, Crowder, and 𝙖𝙗𝙤𝙪. Crowder sets the pin down and Booker receives the ball on the dribble handoff from 𝙖𝙗𝙤𝙪, and then they just immediately thrust into this pick and roll, which leads to an easy lob for 𝙖𝙗𝙁. Obviously, the scoring is great for Devin Booker. It always has been. He's one of the best difficult shot makers in the entire NBA. But the fact that we've been seeing this playmaking shine over this stretch of games just solidified to me how great he is and how great he's going to be. And even outside of just the guys I've mentioned, the contributions that they're getting from up and down the roster can't be praised enough. Jay Crowder has been great defensively and offensively. Frank Kaminsky and Bismack Biyombo have played really well when they've been called upon. And the Aaron Holiday acquisition seems to be paying dividends. They're doing all of this without Chris Paul. For them to remain this good without arguably the best floor general in the entire NBA just tells me that they're going to be an even better team in the postseason this year than they were last year. Give Monty Williams some credit too. He's constructed a nearly perfect system that's maximizing the entire roster's strengths and getting the most out of guys that you wouldn't really expect a lot from. I haven't seen his name brought up in Coach of the Year conversations as much as I feel like he deserves to be. He's easily a frontrunner to win the award this year. The next best team in the entire NBA, the Memphis Grizzlies, are still 8.5 games behind them for the number 1 seed. They are just so far and above the competition that it's hard to imagine they don't wind up back in the finals this year. Like I mentioned earlier, that half-court offense they have, especially when Chris Paul comes back, is going to be lethal. Teams that rely on transition offense and getting out and running the fast break are going to be in for a rude awakening when the postseason rolls around and they're forced to slow the game down and operate in the half court. For the Suns, that's just not the case. They prefer to slow the game down and work your defense until they get a shot that they like. With so many different weapons and ways to hurt you, they're just a really tough team to stop. And considering how good their half court defense is, the second best in the NBA, they're not going to have any issue slowing down opposing teams and making them work extra hard for their baskets. So do you think that the Suns are going to get back to the finals this year? Are they the favorites to win the championship? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Like I said earlier, only 5% of the people who watch my videos are subscribed to the channel. So if you enjoyed this video, why not consider hitting that subscribe button? It's free and it helps me out a ton. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.